Welcome, everybody. I am Yeshua Nicholson from Yes Career Coaching, and I'm really excited to be here again today for another episode of Your Big Career Move. And today I'm going to be talking to Alessandro Ferullo, and hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, about his journey of how he made a career change. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really grateful for you to take the time because I know you're a busy man. And if it's okay with you, we'll start with where you were before you made your career change.
Yes, thanks, Yeshim. It's great to be on here. And you pronounce my name beautifully. It's Italian, and a lot of people have trouble, especially in England, with Italian names. So yeah, I've had various careers in corporate, but my last career was for about 15 years in recruitment. I had a headhunting business with my business partner, and up until 2019, we were quite busy, lots of clients, and then, as we know, the climate changed in the world in 2020. But before the climate changed, actually, without knowing that, I decided that my passion, which was Qigong, something similar to Tai Chi, I wanted to take that more seriously and take it out to a wider audience. So I'd actually decided to create a membership group online for people, not all in the UK, around the world, who could join live Qigong sessions. So the recruitment business was beginning to go downhill. And I think what really prevented it from developing further was the pandemic, partly, and then also the whole Ukraine-Russia situation, because our biggest client was the biggest diamond company in the world, which is Russian, and they couldn't pay us. So suddenly we had zero income. And I thought, this is the time to really commit to my passion, which actually is helping people with their health and energy, is Qigong, which I started practicing myself about 35 years ago. So
how did you get into Qigong? Because right away made the comparison to Tai Chi, presumably because that's something that people are more familiar with. So I'm curious to know how you even came across Qigong and how that became part of your life.
Yeah, exactly. The reason I mentioned Tai Chi is a lot of people have heard of Tai Chi, not of Qigong, and yet Qigong is the root, in a way, of Tai Chi. Qigong is the root of all martial arts, Chinese martial arts, Shaolin, all of these. But Qi is energy, Gong is practice. So in a way, Tai Chi is a form of Qigong that is structured, but Qigong is 4,000 years old, and it's a practice actually to sense the energy around us in the body, and ideally for self-healing. And Tai Chi is a moving form. Obviously it has a different name, but usually it's a structured thing. It's not really spontaneous, but Qigong is a spontaneous form. And the way I came across it is I was really bored one weekend in London 35 years ago, and a friend said, oh, there's this Qigong weekend down the road. I'd never heard of Qigong. I had heard of Tai Chi, and I thought, I'll go. So I found myself in this church with Zhijing Wang, my teacher, and just 6 people, I think we were. But the really exciting thing, I could feel something between my hands. I could feel the Qi, the energy between my hands. I thought, what is this? I always felt there was something beyond, the material, beyond my job and my home and my car and my friends. And when I sensed this, I thought, I've been kind of searching for something beyond this material world. And I think, as you probably know, there's so much in the invisible. I think the visible world is a very small percentage of what we're living in. So to tune into that and then develop it as a practice and see the healing aspects was really, really interesting. Just opened my eyes to something new. And I remained curious. I still am curious and learning after 35 years.
And it has its roots in, does it originate from China?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it's a study of, because Qi is energy and Gong is practice, it's a study of nature. If we look at nature and the energy in nature, how does a tree grow? How does it absorb from the earth? We're kind of the same as humans. So it's a study of nature, humans, the cosmos, how the planets affect us, animals. It's how everything fits together. That's what I really like about it. So if somebody is a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist, it doesn't go against any belief system or religion. And even when religions talk about not liking spirituality, I was brought up a Catholic, and even the word spirituality seems to be, not really welcomed. And yet, Christianity, Catholicism has a very strong spiritual tradition. But that word has become almost something odd. But it's not, because we all have a spirit, and we have a body around it, and it's nothing odd. And any living thing has an energy. A tree has an energy that helps it grow. So the Qigong is kind of cuts through all of that, and it's just connecting with what keeps us alive and what keeps nature alive.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. So your, shall we call it a love affair with Qigong, started 35 years ago. And then can you tell us, like, what was that journey for you to ultimately then make this your I guess your way of making a living?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it was a long journey. I studied it mostly. I was a student of it with my teacher. So I would go on weekends once a month. I would do retreats with my teacher. And he taught all the different aspects. So there might be some sitting meditation, moving meditation, sword practice, 5 animals, all the aspects, the spiritual practice. So I was learning myself. And one of the main things with Qigong is that as a good practitioner, we have a duty to help others or inform others how they can help themselves. So if somebody had a problem with their digestion, I would say, oh, you could do these movements, to help to ease your digestion. And they say, oh yeah, that's nice, that helps. And so I thought, why don't I actually teach this a little more formally? So I started teaching classes in Wimbledon. Then I taught in Brighton once a month for 10 years. Then I taught in Canterbury in a clinic. So I was teaching it as a way to share it with people, but I couldn't live from it. And it was almost like a hobby or a passion, let's say, that I was just sharing. And then it got to the point where I thought, actually, I want to commit to this, to really make a difference and transform people's lives, by working more one-to-one or in a group with people. And then when the pandemic happened, I was forced, like many of us, to be working from home. So I started offering free sessions at home. I think I did 200 free sessions during the lockdown.
Wow.
People all over the world, people in New Zealand, in Goa. It was just great to connect with people all over the world.
Yeah, that's
do
fabulous.
A Qigong session and learning myself. Okay, how does this work online? Can they sense this? Can they do this? And then I thought, actually, I can make a living if I commit to this more. So I started clarifying my own vision, my own values, creating a website, and it just started, building momentum from there.
So if I understand correctly, you were running this sort of hobby business, if you like, alongside your full-time career.
Yeah, I was.
Right. Oh, okay.
And it was only weekends, usually weekends, so it didn't get in the way at all. And also I wasn't so committed to it because it was a kind of hobby. And, they often say if you do things as a hobby, you also get hobby rewards. So
yeah.
So some it is true. Sometimes, we're in England. If it was raining, one person would come to the class, and then I'd lose money by teaching one person in a hall that I'd hired. So it ended up, am I really sort of serving others in the best way and serving myself? And then it became clear that I had to change something. And I think the pandemic, like for me and many people, possibly pushed us into looking at our careers and what was really important to us, and really examining, what we were all doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely correct in that. And can you remember, like, at the time when you made this decision to move into this full time, I'm curious to know who the people were around you. What were their what was their response when you said, actually, I'm just going to leave my full-time career behind and I'm going to focus on this solely? What was the response generally?
Yeah, there was resistance, you know, but I think there was more support because people knew how important the practice was to me. People had seen the benefits, you know, over time, either for themselves or others. So it wasn't that difficult. It was more my own doubts, you know, my own fears. You know, are people really going to turn up, you know, in a membership group and pay a monthly fee for live sessions? So it was kind of, how do I commit to that, and who's there to support me? But the support definitely was there, you know, seeing that I had the passion to do it, and maybe if I can call it the skills or the practice that I, you know, over many years. But I think I had to find a way to make it really accessible and easy. So I created some free webinars online to inform people about this new transition, if you like.
Yeah.
And really overnight, the recruitment headhunting just stopped immediately. So it did take me a while to build this up, but the membership started almost immediately after my webinars, my free webinars. I think I had 10 or 12 people. So I had an immediate membership group, which was really rewarding for myself and for them.
Yeah.
And then I started building up the one-to-one clients, you know, people who really needed help with different health issues. And, you know, then I was learning as well, if I'm working with ME or MS or things that are quite serious, how can Qigong help? And in a way, if it is an energy practice, if we're helping our energy, it can help almost any condition, I would say. But the skill is, what do we do? Do we do movement? Do we do stillness? Do we do breath work? And that's what I've learned, how to help people in a kind of very quick and immediate way. And you know, I get informed by the energy for what is needed. So I'm just learning. I'm always a student myself, I have to say, as well.
I like that. I think it's fun to learn, but maybe that's just me. What you mentioned the word fear a little while ago. You said that you had the support network, but actually you had these fears for yourself. And you know, there'll be plenty of people listening or watching this who are exactly that situation right now, that are going, I know what I want to do, or maybe I don't know what I want to do, but I just have this huge fear that's holding me back. How did you overcome it?
Yeah, I would say, for me personally, it wasn't easy. I think the way I've been brought up, and with my father working, he worked for United Nations, always in an office behind a desk. You know, the tradition of what does work look like was really deeply embedded. So, you know, if I'm at home in front of my mobile phone teaching people around the world, you know, it's like, this is a completely different world.
Yeah.
But I did have to put some things in place, which might be helpful to the listeners or not. I mean, one of the things that's really struck me recently, and there's lots of even books written about it, some real thought leaders who say there's only two energies, love and fear. And if we're in love, if we love what we're doing, we're passionate, you know, fear can't be present at the same time. So often if I'm acting from fear, people may either pick that up, or I'm not showing up in a really empowered way. Yeah. So how do I stay in love? And I know love is a big word, but for me, for my business, it's like, what can I do to create a business that I can share my, for example, values. I clarify what are my values for my business, and can I live by these values? So that was one thing, to be clear about my values. You know, is this something I'm passionate about? They often say, if you do something you love, you will get rewarded anyway. I think a lot of people do things for money, and if you're doing it just for money, often that can be a bit of a struggle. So am I passionate? What are my values? And what is my daily practice to stay positive, to stay empowered? And maybe I'll share some of those. Obviously, I do my Qigong practice. But I also do, you know, a gratitude practice every single day, even for the things that are very basic, like breathing. I woke up breathing this morning before I get out of bed. If I'm not grateful, I don't get out of bed until I feel grateful, because how many people today haven't woken up, haven't breathed?
Right.
Millions in the world.
So
I'm grateful for the opportunity to have another day to share with others what I have. So gratitude, my own practice, or people's own practice, and all of these things before I check my phone or my computer, because once I check those things, then the world is suddenly spinning. So that brings fear into me. But actually, if I can be connected and grounded, and I've done my practice, I'm already onto a winning day, if I can call it that. And then having a structure, I think, having a structure. So for me personally, it's I do quite a lot on YouTube. I share quite a lot of content. And I think people find me in that way, and hopefully they can see that. So I think it's gradual. And also I follow other people who are inspiring and successful. So I think there's so much online now where we can be inspired even by things, like your podcast, like this is just such an inspiration. I hope it's inspiring me to just talk about it, because I haven't really talked about my fear that much. I think finding ways to accept that I'm good enough, that's another big one for me. Who am I to do this? So self-love is a big one, that I do deserve to be rewarded. And I think this is an interesting thing. I was fearful of raising my prices, because people used to come to my classes and pay not much, and paying not much means that's how much they value it as well. So it doesn't mean we have to be really over the top. But when I started really increasing my prices, I think people valued it more, and I received more as well. So, being brave, showing up, courageous, being a student of other people who are successful, and there's so much out there. I would say, be a student of other people, do your own work on yourself, keep gratitude as an energy practice, which it is. Journaling is another good one, just to put down all the fears and whatever's in the way of it, and keep your sort of mental wealth circle healthy. One of my friends wrote a book called Mental Wealth. So it's actually, you mentioned that circle, family, friends, who am I surrounded by? And I did have to let go of certain people who were quite negative, or saying, oh, you can't do that. It's like, that's their reality. So staying grounded, having my own practice, and being close to other people who are successful as well, being around other people. So those are,
it's really inspiring, isn't it? Well, it sounds like you're being very deliberate, or you were very deliberate about it, and that's the only way to get through it, I think, is if you have got those fears, you just have to be very deliberate about identifying exactly what the fear is, because sometimes people think they're scared of something, and then when they peel back the layers of the onion, they realize actually they're not scared of that, it's this they're scared of. And I find the whole process really fascinating, to really just identify what the fear actually is, and then start addressing it, and then putting, exactly like you say, putting practices in place that suddenly then over time those fears just shrink. So I'm curious, did you get to a point where the fear just didn't exist anymore, or did you have just enough fear to still, I don't know, give you those butterflies in your tummy whenever you were doing something?
No, I always have just enough fear, if not more. Even if I'm doing a one-to-one session with somebody I know online, I have it's kind of a slightly fearful, also excitement, thinking, right, we're present, we're here, the energy exists for all of us. Let's use this to transform anything that we don't need. And that's a kind of partly a fear and a respect as well for what I'm doing. I'm often, with my practice, is actually giving up or surrendering my own thinking, or thinking I'm doing anything. I'm just here as a kind of as a guide or vessel, and I'm just tuning into this energy. That's what I love about the Qigong. It's not me doing much except helping the person to sort of tune in, and then they get the benefits, and often they get, a lot more benefits than I might get even, but it's working for them. So yeah, you probably heard that expression. I think I heard it this week as well. Fear is false evidence appearing real.
Yes,
it's
I
not,
like that. I hadn't heard that, but I
you
like
hadn't,
it.
yeah, it is false evidence, and I'm thinking I'm not good enough. Where does that come from? Oh, because I went to boarding school, and they made me feel, my biology teacher used to come in every week and say, you're all going to fail. I heard that for years.
So you mentioned your dad earlier, and I'm a little bit fearful of asking you this because I genuinely have no idea what the answer is going to be to this. And feel free to tell me to move on to the next question. I won't be offended. But I'd love to know, you mentioned your dad and how he presented this role model to you of what work should look like. And obviously you followed in his footsteps for many years. And now that you've stepped away from that, and I don't know if your dad's still around, and I'm sorry if it's a sore subject if he's not, but how do you think, or how does he feel about what you're doing now?
Yeah, no, look, I'm very happy to talk about it. Unfortunately, he passed away in his late 50s. So he passed away at 43 years ago.
Wow.
So I was in my 20s. So I hadn't even started Qigong yet. And he was always quite busy. He wasn't often home. He was traveling quite a lot. He was in the World Health Organization, but very, very kind of structured lifestyle. And I'd say very rigid. I mean, he was quite arty, my dad. And so, but he was also an engineer, a doctor of health. But I think he'd been brought up quite strictly. So his view of life was quite rigid. So I learned a really interesting lesson from that was, what I learned is if we're too rigid, we're not happy, no matter what we do. I think this idea of being open to following our passions, and he used to love playing the piano and singing, and that's when he found joy, but there wasn't enough of that. Possibly because he was too busy, or maybe he was waiting for when he retired, and he had some property in Sardinia, in Denmark, and it was all planned, but then he was gone. And that was another big lesson. It's like, if I can't enjoy my life right now, what's the point of planning, 10, 20 years ahead? So that really struck me when he passed. It really made me realize I've got to really follow my passion. And if I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, I need to make some changes. So I did let go of quite a lot of fear at that time around doing the right thing. And I think the right thing for each of us, we need to just, follow our hearts really, rather than our minds. I think he was following his mind and what was right. And in those days, I think in that generation as well, people didn't question things that much. Now we almost have too much choice, but I think I learned a lot of lessons by him not really showing up as the true, beautiful, artistic, expressive human being that he was. And I saw both sides, and I could see one was a bit squashed by the other. And I didn't want that to happen. Maybe I went a bit the other way, but that's where I'm at.
What do you think he would make of what you're doing now?
Oh no, I think he'd get it. I think he'd love it. And I do present Qigong now. I mean, I do teach in companies, in corporate. Really, it's not something odd. It's actually taking control of our health. And I think everybody's much more aware of physical health, mental health, emotional health. In the old days, people didn't even separate these things, but now people talk about it in those terms. So if I know with my dad, if I said to him, look, let's, we're on the beach, let's do a little bit of practice to just connect to the earth and enjoy the sun and being out in nature. I know he'd get it, but I was too young in those days and I didn't have that experience. It's to present it in a way that isn't weird. And actually, you know, Qigong is to help people to become, they call it Gen Ren, to become a true human being, to become who they are. I think often as humans, maybe through fear, we're living a life slightly maybe not aligned with who we truly are.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Gosh, you've been on such an incredible journey. It's so fascinating. I think we could probably talk for hours and I'd still want to know more. Now, having been on this incredible journey, what is success to you? How would you define it?
I think success is just something a lot simpler than I had imagined. For me, success is being, you know, happy, joyful, accepting where I am and accepting, you know, what's possible, having sense of inner peace, having a sense of gratitude, and knowing that I'm supported, you know, every day and inspired by the world around me, you know, by my friends, by nature, by, you know, let's call it universal consciousness, Jung would call it, but, you know, in Qigong, let's call it the Qi, the universal energy, life force that keeps me alive. So it's just feeling that I'm aligned with my values, that I'm doing what I love, and also that I'm helping others in the best way possible. Actually, maybe those three things. So it's a lot, but it's not money. You know, that's for sure. I was talking to somebody yesterday and he said he's never worked for money and he's been very successful. And I love that, the fact that if we work from what we're passionate about, then we are rewarded in the best way possible. So maybe that's one of the things for people, if they're changing career, to take away, to be sure that that's their passion rather than that's something, you know, people seem to be doing at the moment, for example, you know, or
yeah, we get into a weird cycle of chasing weird things, and it's not until we stop and actually reflect on what is important and what makes us happy and all of those wonderful things, but we often don't take the time to reflect. Don't take the time out. If somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, well, yeah, this all sounds great, Alessandro, but, you know, great that you could do it and great that all these other people could do it, but I can't do it because XYZ, there's no chance that I can make a career change and do something that I love. What would your advice be to them?
Well, I would say tune in to your heart, ask your heart. In the Qigong tradition, the mind is in the heart. In the West, we tend to follow our minds, but the mind, it is a useful tool. Of course, we need it, but the heart is the organ of truth. And there is the Institute of Heart Math in California. You can, you know, we can look them up. They talk about how to listen to our hearts. And often we can just put our hands over our hearts and just ask, what would we really love to do? And then write some notes on it, write reasons why we want to do what we want to do, write reasons why we don't want to be doing what we are doing, and take our time to build on that. You know, maybe write our values down, but have some clarity on it. And when we have clarity and we make a decision, you know, as Deepak Chopra says, the universe handles the details, but the decision maybe is the most important part. Sometimes people have half decided to do something. I think that the word in Latin, decidere, means to cut off any other possibilities. So apparently when the Spaniards arrived in South America, they burnt all their ships. They cut off any return anywhere else. They burnt.
No way.
That was their decision. We're here to stay. I'm not saying that that's a good thing to do, because I think they were quite ruthless. But when we make a decision, we cut off other options. And if you really tune in to your heart and it's what you really want to do, I'd say build it up over time. And people might be surprised how quickly it can happen, because the universe definitely sends us information, sends us help through other people. With social media and everything these days, look up, say I want to become a coach in a certain niche to help, I don't know, men who have been to boarding school, just for example. If I put that in, I'll see there's a podcast about that. I'll see there's information. And if that's what I'm really drawn to, I can get inspiration. Whereas in the old days, it's much harder to find out that information. So I would say do some research, tune into your heart, and really follow what your heart tells you. And the heart will tell us. It's as I say, the heart, if we ask it a question, often it gives us an answer very quickly. The mind gives us convoluted answers. The heart, do I do this? Is this for me? It'll say yes, no. It's quick and it's immediate. And I recommend people look up the Institute of Heart Math.
I'll certainly be looking that up. That sounds fascinating.
The Americans don't have maths; it's math.
Yeah, math.
So and it's been around for many years, and they have some beautiful practices. So I've been doing some of those, and I do often ask my heart and tune into it. But the mind will often try and override it, say, "Don't be silly," and I think, "Stop it! Keep quiet." And one of the Qigong things is to quieten the mind, and meditation and mindfulness is really to realize the thoughts are not who we are. That's another thing I think to kind of maybe end on, is we are not our thoughts. They come and go. We are, our heart, and our true nature is beyond the mind. And just that's a great place to start, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you. And I discovered meditation and quietening the mind, I don't know, probably about 4 years ago. And it's, it sounds so OTT, but it changed my life. It changed the way I see everything, do everything. It's just incredibly powerful. Oh my goodness, I feel really lucky that actually it was my namesake Yeshim who we have a mutual connection, and she put us in touch with each other, and I feel really lucky. And straight after this, I'm going to be sending her a message to say thank you so much. I really hope that anybody listening to this benefits from the wisdom that you've imparted. And without further ado, I shall say thank you.
So maybe a final thought, Yeshim, which
yes, please.
One of my friends, really good friends, Margaret, went to China, and she met a Qigong master and asked him, what's the most important thing about the practice? And I think this is something that can help people to tune in also to their heart, to their passion, to what they would really love to do. And he said, remember, always keep a smile in your heart. And if people are listening right now, just get a sense of, what if the heart is smiling? And what if every cell is smiling? Like, our energy can change immediately, no matter what, even if the situation is really difficult. Smile in your heart, and then just stay with that, and it can transform, or start tuning in to our deeper nature, our true nature. The mind, going back to that, is often taking us off in different directions, but the heart, remember to always keep that in your heart, smile.
What a beautiful note to end on. Keep a smile in your heart. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Yeshua.